ሀገሬ ናፍቆት
Need is more attention because what's taking place around us, even though we are lucky to live like Washington State, and still we have more to do, and there is nothing for granted. Actually, this is a time that we need to engage our civic duty, and this is one of those things. I hope we're going to continue to do so. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce. My name is Barakat Kiros. I'm the chair for South Coalition of Immigrant, Refugee, and Communities of Color. And then I'm going to pass the rest for our beautiful lady, Los.
Thank you, Barakat. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Lois Martin. I'm a member of the Central Area Neighborhood District Council and the coalition of, okay, sorry, forgive me. I have so many acronyms that I need to share with you. So the Coalition of Immigrants, Refugees, and Communities of Color. We want to welcome you to our candidate forum this afternoon. We are very pleased to be able to start out with our King County Executive candidates, and then we'll move on to District 2, and then our final, which will be Eddie Lynn and Adonis Duckworth, and then our final person who will be coming is Erica Evans from the city attorney race. So Clarence will go through, he'll give you a little bit more history about that, and I'll introduce our moderator shortly. But first I want to thank our organizations that are here and ask that their teams please stand up. So we'll start with CERC. So all CERC members, if you could stand up, please. Thank you very much for helping host this. And then our Voices of Community Activists and Leaders Washington, the Vocal Washington team. And then probably our largest group represented here, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Please stand up. And then the NAACP of Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. I'm a proud NAACP cardholder here. Freedom Project. Thank you. African American Leadership Forum. Thank you. I know our fearless leader, Dawn Bennett, was here. She had to leave for another engagement. And then last but certainly not least, the Washington African Leadership Association. And WAMA, also, the Washington African Media Association. So thank you very much. They are actually live streaming this event today, so we appreciate you doing that. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator tonight. Clarence Gunn has been active in local politics for really, I'll say a number of years instead of decades. Clarence is actively involved in the Democratic Party, and he is also the fearless leader of Democrats for Diversity and Inclusion. So I'd like to welcome Clarence, and he'll take it over from here. Thank you, Clarence.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm hoping there are more people coming. We sent out tons of flyers, we walked the streets and knocked on doors and whatever. So more people should be coming. We're going to ask the people that are sitting at the tables to find a seat out here in the audience, because that's where the speakers will be, focusing their attention. So as you finish your plates, you can find a seat in the area. Today's candidate forum, well, let me start at the beginning. My name is Clarence Gunn, former school teacher, union organizer, and now active in the Democratic Party, as Lois mentioned, and doing a lot of work with the Coalition of Immigrants, Refugees, and Communities of Color, and fortunate enough to connect with just a variety of different community groups and organizations. As you know, okay, we don't need that. I'm sorry. It's a fluid operation, so thanks for working with. Questions, taking the extended time, and even some extra time. We were only supposed to be an hour, and it's been an hour and 15. So thank you for the audience. Great audience questions. We touched on the audience. Thank you very much. Our next candidate is pulling in the parking lot. So we're going to just take a quick 5-minute break. As soon as she runs in, we're going to just do a very short cycle. And, questions for the final candidate is Eric Evans for City Attorney. She was able to respond on the other candidate despite multiple attempts at outreach. So this is what we got. So we'll have her briefly after the break, and then we'll be able to move forward. We do want to thank everybody for coming. I want to remind everybody you can register to vote. Find your friends, neighbors, relatives, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, etc. All these young folks.
Is my both professional experience and then also my personal experience. I'll start with the personal. I think about generations before me, like my grandfather, who was a protester in the 1968 Olympic Games. Some of you might remember the imagery of black athletes protesting. That one of those was my grandfather, Lee Evans. Using his podium to stand up and fight back, it's what's in my DNA. And getting to my personal, professional experience now, I have worked in the city attorney's office before, so I understand both of its divisions, criminal and civil. I've been a pro tem judge, and most recently was an assistant United States attorney. I think understanding litigation, understanding the needs and issues we're seeing in community, being active in community, has given me the tools and skill sets right now that's needed at a time like this. Thank you. I don't mind standing, it's easier.
How have you been engaged in anti-racism, equity, and/or diversity efforts personally, professionally, and/or personally? How will you respond to federal efforts to eliminate DEI programs?
Thank you for that. I think to my experience leading the Lauren Miller Bar Association, which is a civil rights organization, I was one of the youngest presidents to lead it a few years back. To your question about enhancing diversity, I was really proud to bring a bar pass program that I led and taught for 7 years and helped dozens and dozens of black and brown young law graduates prepare and pass the bar exam. And that is something specifically that I've done to actually change the face of what the profession looks like in Washington State. Another thing I'm really proud of that I currently do is lead the Washington Leadership Institute, which is about enhancing young lawyers to be leaders in our state. Those are two things that immediately come to mind, and then the question on protecting us from what's happening at a national level. I just came from the Department of Justice. I was an assistant United States attorney. I was one of the 2 civil rights prosecutors, and I left that role shortly after Trump took office because it was clear rollbacks in our civil and human rights. And so I'm running to fight against that. And I know the training and skill sets that I bring is unlike anything that's ever been in this office before. This office has been around for 150 years, and in 150 years, there has never been anyone that looks like us in this role. And it's time to change that.
Organizations and immigrant communities, what roles should the city attorneys play in prevention, prosecution, and survivor support?
Yes. When I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, one of my roles was holding folks accountable that committed hate crimes in our district. And one of the things, and it's on our website, as the next city attorney, we're going to create an anti-hate and biased crimes unit. Because when I was in that office and seeing the lack in proper filing of cases that are actually hate crimes, and actually having a case that I went to trial on involving a gentleman that was African American, he was called a racial slur and then assaulted. And that case should have been charged as a felony, but it got missed. And so having an anti-hate and biased crimes unit to make sure cases are being referred properly to hold folks accountable and to protect community is something I see concrete that we're going to do. Thank you for that. Thank you.
What strategies can the city attorney pursue to prevent overdose incidents and death? How will your office support the provisions of culturally relevant and specific mental health and addiction services, especially for those led by Black and LGBTQ-led orgs?
One thing immediately comes to mind is bringing back a new reimagined community court house to get services and get connected with service providers, get connected into treatment. Whatever the need is, community court has social workers and folks that show up to give that person the right response to address what you're asking about. So as the next city attorney, we're going to bring back a reimagined new community court. In this campaign, I've gone across our state and been looking at models of community courts that work. I've been to Tacoma, Auburn, and Redmond, and Bellevue just opened one. And what works is having community court in community, like at a library, and having treatment and service providers all in one place. This has reduced recidivism, so folks don't get out and reoffend. It contributes to their healing, so they are no longer, struggling with substance use disorder. So it's something that I see as the next city attorney bringing back, and something that is directly relevant and related to addressing some of the substance use disorders that we are seeing in our streets. Another thing is prioritizing more pre-filed diversion into law enforcement assisted diversion, and it's also called Let Everyone Lead with Dignity. And that is another avenue that is before even someone gets in the criminal system, having people that can help them and address root causes early on to be preventative. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. District 2 and 3 face some of the highest rates of gun violence and overdose deaths in Seattle. What role can the city attorney office play in addressing these crises? What is the role of the city attorney in developing community-based diversion?
That's an excellent question. In this campaign trail, I recently was at Seattle South Shore School, and I spoke to some young students, and they said their biggest concern is gun violence and not wanting their friends and family members to be killed from gun violence here in Seattle. But the city attorney, while it doesn't do felonies, it makes referrals. It does have a specific assigned attorney that does the emergency protection orders for firearms. And those are preventative measures that we can be proactive with to making sure folks that are, it's called an emergency protection order. If someone has a risk factor, it allows the court to order them to surrender their firearms so they're not going back into a home and potentially committing a violent act. Another thing, I am proud to have the sole endorsement of the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. They are leaders in gun prevention. And when we met and I interviewed with them, the importance of being good partners with them is something that they see in me, and is why they decided to go with this campaign, and it's work that I'm going to continue to partner and collaborate and to also hear from community what the issues are and how we can do better. The last thing I'll end with is when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, one of my crimes that I did a lot of was gun trafficking, and seeing the impact that that has in our district and in our communities, and understanding the importance of going after some of the gun traffickers, and being good partners to make sure that's happening is another avenue I see of being preventative. Thank you.
What direction will you give our city employees on how to protect our citizens?
Seattle is a sanctuary city, meaning that we do not cooperate with the federal government. Yeah, we can clap for that. What I see is I look at leaders like our Attorney General, Nick Brown, who has been leading the fight to protect us here in Washington from the federal overreach we have from our dictator-in-chief. And really honored to have him solely backing this campaign, because he trusts my work and he knows that we're going to be great partners to fight back. If the National Guard tries to come in, we're going to file an order in court that essentially asked the judge to tell Trump to back off because it's unconstitutional. Things like that, working in collaboration with the team that's behind us is how we're going to protect Seattle.
Against people with the criminal involvement.
Here in Seattle, there's a ban the box of what we have in our city. What I see about, destigmatizing and being someone that, as a city prosecutor, that's part of the role is prosecution. However, given it's a misdemeanor court, we need to be making sure we're providing diversion and opportunities for folks not to have a criminal record in the first place. There's a lot of cases that fit into that bucket. I'm thinking of cases like when folks are unhoused, if they've been trespassed from somewhere, or if someone is using drugs in public. Those are things I see for diversion. Priorities that I see in the office that are not appropriate for diversion are folks like that are committing domestic violence assaults, or folks that are driving under the influence and putting other people at risk. However, there's a lot of cases that are misdemeanors that do and must have those diversions early on, so we are actually, providing people what they need and also not unnecessarily just charging and criminally prosecuting folks. Thank you. Y'all said 5 questions. This seems like 6 or so.
How could we more proactively prevent fair housing violations and willingness to react to discrimination?
That's been another thing I've heard this campaign, hearing from voters, having issues of housing discrimination, especially for Black trans women. That's something that I've heard in community of folks that have been targeted and discriminated against. The city attorney does have a role in making sure that bad landlords are held accountable. And that's something I see. And what I've heard from folks that have actually been discriminated and affected against is making sure that the city attorney's office has, even open meetings, quarterly meetings that we can have and allow community to come in to actually tell us, like, these are problems that we're seeing. That's something I'm going to do as the next city attorney. And not only just having the meetings, but clearly having, and these are the action items we're going to be doing between now and the next meeting. Those are things that I immediately think of when it comes to addressing what you just asked. Thank you.
These are our last 2 questions, I promise. If you are elected into this position, which current policies will you support and strengthen, and what type of innovative policies will you implement in the future?
Yeah, strengthen pre-trial diversion so that lets people get services so they're not ending up in the criminal justice system in the first place. Programs like bringing back a new community court. And the old model that was recent, had some issues with accountability, but making sure it does have that accountability piece, but then also has the resources for folks. So it's another way for someone to get their case dismissed if they comply with the services that are needed. So really the rehabilitation, when I'm thinking of it holistically, is giving folks the right response to help people. I think of so many people that are suffering in our streets, that are suffering from fentanyl addiction, a drug we've never, have encountered from in our nation. It's extremely deadly and more addictive, 50 times more addictive than heroin. Making sure we're actually helping people that are suffering and see those folks as family members. What's the right response if your family member is dealing with addiction? It's not to say, oh, they should just be in jail. It's no, what are things we can do to support you, get you into the treatment, get you in so you're able to, be okay at the end of the day. So things like that are what I see. And then another thing on the civil side of the office is making sure we're being proactive to protect Seattle from things that we haven't seen yet in Project 2025 from the Trump administration, being ready, working with our Attorney General to just be ready to go. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to hear from you, get to meet you, get to see you here today. And we have one final question. and it's, what is your hair routine? I'm kidding. No. How do you differ from your opponent? How do you differ from your opponent?
I think that we can talk about hair routines. That's way more better than talking about her. She's not even here. She's definitely someone, unfortunately, that decided to join the Republican Party 3.5 years after the first Trump administration. And I say that to say that we saw just the fascist, hateful authoritarianism coming from Trump. And for someone to say, I'm going to join his party at this time, I think really speaks to someone's value and judgment. Another thing, leaving on a positive note, is just our experience. I'm really proud to be the most qualified candidate, period.
Come on.
Thank you all so much.